which means you need to kill. You should satisfy your own words to Draupadi, which is to kill. You should satisfy Yudhishthira and the others, which is not to kill. And then you should satisfy me, which is apparently equivocal, that to kill and not to kill. So Arjun, he understands the heart of Krishna. He understands what Krishna is really asking him to do, and he so the verse that is used is Agya Harer Hardam. So Agya means instruction, and Harer Hardam is the heart of Krishna. So so as we had seen that Krishna was apparently taking both the sides, right? In 1739, he had said, you kill Ashwathama. Then in 1743, he had said that Ashwathama should be spared. Then later on, he agrees with Bhim, which is that Ashwathama should be killed. Then he says that you have to both kill and spare Ashwathama. So Arjun, now he's reviewing these 4 options that he has in front of him. So if he kills Ashwathama, then he would make Draupadi unhappy, he would make Yudhishthira and almost everyone, with the exception of Bhim, unhappy. He could spare Ashwathama, but then Bhim would be angry. Krishna had indicated also that he should kill, but not be the cause of the killing. So how does one understand this instruction, that Arjun should kill but not be the cause of killing? And the analogy that is given is that of an executioner. That when an executioner kills a person who's condemned to die, he kills, but is not the cause of the killing, because he neither ordained the killing, nor does he have any personal enmity with the person who is being killed. He is simply following orders. So the cause of the killing is the judge. The judge has said that this person needs to be killed. Or in a wider perspective, the cause of the killing is the person himself, because he committed activities that necessitated this kind of a punishment. So one way to understand is that Arjun to understand is that if I kill but not be the cause of the killing, then the only way I can do that is if I am not personally vested in this activity. Then Arjun, he rejects this option because he realizes that he cannot take on that role, since he is too much personally invested with Ashwathama. Ashwathama has murdered his children. So there is obviously personal enmity. Ashwathama is the son of his guru. So there is some respect and affection. But with so much of personal entanglement, it is difficult for Arjun to claim complete detachment. And also, personally, he did not like the idea of physically killing Ashwathama. So now the 4th option is, which Krishna gives him, is to kill and not to kill Ashwathama. And in order to do so, Arjun, he recollects a pastime that happens on the 17th day of Mahabharata. So this is when Karna, he enters the battlefield, and when he enters, he creates havoc. He does not enter on the 17th. He enters right after Bhishma is killed, and don't remember that, but it was before the 17th day. But on the 17th day, Karna attacks Yudhishthir, and in the attack, he badly wounds Yudhishthir. He breaks his chariot, he kills his horses, and he breaks his bow, he breaks apart his armor, he shoots several arrows into him, but he doesn't kill him. And in a very disrespectful way, he says that I don't really want to kill you. You can leave the battlefield. And of course, the hidden reason behind it was that Karna had promised Kunti Devi that he would only kill one of the Pandavas, and he wanted to kill Arjun. So he did not. He actually at different points of time engages with all the four Pandavas, including Bhim, and he defeats all of them, but he doesn't kill them. But Yudhishthir is the one that he engaged with in the most insulting way. So Yudhishthir is hurt so badly that he withdraws from the battlefield, and he's sitting in his tent and getting his wounds attended to. And then Arjun hears about it, so he goes running to Yudhishthir to ask for his well-being. And then as soon as Arjun enters, Yudhishthir turns to him and he says, "Well, did you kill Karna?" Arjun said, "No, I just came to ask you about your welfare." And then Yudhishthir becomes very, very angry. And he calls Arjun a eunuch. He says that, "What do you think? I'm a woman that you've come to ask about my welfare. Karna is causing havoc. He's insulting your brothers. And you, like a woman, is coming and asking for, he has left the battlefield. And so it is better for you to leave your Gandiva because you're not worthy of it." Now, Arjun had taken a secret vow that if anybody asks him to put his Gandiva down, he would kill him. So as soon as Arjun heard Yudhishthir say that, he took out his sword and he rushed towards Yudhishthir to kill him. Now Krishna, being omniscient, knew that this was going to transpire, so he was also there. And then he stops and he says, "How can you kill your own brother?" And Arjun says, "But I've taken a vow. How can I not follow my vow?" So then Krishna says that for a respectable person or for an elderly person, disrespect is the same as killing. So Arjun understands what he says, and then he goes ahead and he speaks very harshly to Yudhishthir, and he disrespects him in many ways. And then after that, he touches his feet, he begs for forgiveness, and then he leaves the camp. And then we know later on in the day, Arjun actually does kill Karna. So, so when Arjun recollects this past time, so he understands that that is one way that a person can be killed but not killed. So, so Arjun, he takes out his sword, says Asina, and he Jahara, he severes the Murdhanyam. He severes from the head of the Dvijasya, from the head of the Brahman. So notice that Ashwathama is again called a Brahman over here. It says Murdhanyam Dvijasya. From the head of the Brahman, the Manim, the jewel, as well as his Murdhajam, as well as his hair. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the jewel is situated on the head of Ashwathama and thus represents his head. Thus it also means his head. But in the literal sense, his head will not be cut off. Thus Ashwathama was killed and not killed. So two ways for us to understand. One is the insight given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that since the Manim represents the head of Ashwathama, cutting off the Manim represents cutting off the head of Ashwathama, and the other is cutting off the hair and depriving the Manim is being disrespectful or insulting to to a Dvija, and that's why Sutta Goswami deliberately calls Ashwatthama Dvija. And disrespect for an respectful person is the same as killing. So Prabhupada explains in the purport, he says, here Ashwatthama is indicated as twice born. Certainly he was twice born, but he fell down from his position and therefore he was properly punished. So it's not that Sutta Goswami is calling Ashwatthama Dvija just to support the actions of Arjun, but he's also taking a Vaishnava perspective to the apparent fall down of Ashwatthama. And in the scriptures, there are many, many examples of great personalities who fall down, they suffer the consequences, they realize the errors of their ways, and then they are reinstated. So does anybody know any examples of this?
From Mahabharata, Guruji?
From anywhere, even from the Bhagavatam.
Durvasa Muni?
Yes, Durvasa Muni is an example that he became angry and he fell down and then he apologized and was reinstated. And and then there is the example of the Sadgarbhas. They were sons of Marichi, the son of Brahma, and they fell down because of insulting Brahma. And eventually, after a long time, they were reinstated. Then and Nalkuver and Manigriv, Brahma and Vak. In the Vak pastime, that Brahma fell down while running after Vak, but then he was reinstated. And there are many examples. Indra offending Brahaspati, Bali Maharaj. He did not directly offend Krishna, but indirectly by offending his devotees, Indra. And ultimately, the most prominent example is us ourselves. So somehow or else, we have come to this material world because we have offended Krishna. But just like all these personalities, so it's not that we are great personalities, but just like all these personalities have received the mercy of Krishna and they were reinstated, so similarly there is hope for us that we will also receive the mercy of Krishna and his devotees and get reinstated. And Krishna, he explicitly makes this promise in Bhagavad Gita. This is in chapter 9, verse 31. Famous verse, Shripati Bhavati Dharmatma Shashvak Shantim Nigachati Kvantaya Pratijani Name Bhakti Prananshati. So this is Krishna's assurance. So because of these reasons, Sutta Goswami is now addressing Ashwatthama as Dvija. Now Ashwatthama is of course not done with his mischief, but the fact that he's already on the path of redemption. So being punished means that the sinful reactions are being washed away. That's the whole idea. That's why the kings punish. That's why they're considered to be the representative of Lord Vishnu, because when they punish a criminal, then the suffering that is caused to that punishment, it neutralizes the sinful reactions of the activity for which they are being punished. So Sutta Goswami, seeing that Ashwatthama is being punished, is now already hopeful that Ashwatthama will be very soon reinstated in his position as a Brahmana. Okay. Questions, comments?
Can you repeat the last line, Prabhuji? What did you like? How will he be reinstated?
So this is more like Sutta Goswami looking into the future. So if you remember, so far Ashwatthama has never been called a Brahmin. He's been called a Dvija Bandhu, Dvija Putra, or through his Drona or Gautami. And only the reason is because he had given up his Brahmanical conduct. But now that he has been punished, so the reactions of the punishment is taking away his or will start taking away his sinful reactions. So which is why the understanding is that Ashwatthama will very soon in the near future be reinstated to his position as that being a Dvija or a Brahman.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Haribol Prem Kishore Prabhu.
What about the disrespect which we just spoke about? If we are in the platform of soul, how can how to connect to the disrespect, Prabhu? Like, I do understand is it like a hurt of self-respect or?
So let me see if I understand your question. You're saying that, so I made the point that disrespect is the same as killing. And I guess you're asking that, or clarify again what you're asking.
The question is if one, probably these souls who we are talking about are in a very high platform, right? So at what instance they feel as a disrespect? What is the magnitude of it?
Difficult to answer, but in these particular cases, or at least this particular case that we are discussing, the disrespect is being evaluated on the basis of the conventional understanding. So the conventional understanding is, so take the example of Arjun with respect to Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir had a position of an elder brother, which is like a father. So Arjun speaking to him harshly or chastising him or abusing him is disrespectful. So that's the conventional understanding. Ashwatthama is a Brahman, and cutting his hair off, cutting the money away from his forehead. Conventional understanding is that is disrespectful. The general understanding is that for a respectful person, when they are treated disrespectful, it is as good as them being killed. What actually constitutes as disrespectful action is kind of predicated on the particular situation. Because if Yudhishthir was disrespected by Karna, but that is not considered to be the same as killing him, because they are enemies. So it is expected for an enemy to speak harshly with you. It's expected for an enemy to attack you with weapons. That's not being disrespectful. That's expected. But it's not what you would expect his younger brother to do. So what constitutes as a disrespectful action is to a great extent predicated on what is the platform against, what is the backdrop against which it's being performed.
Basically, it's a perspective at the time and circumstance then.
Exactly. The only thing is that it's a perspective that to a great extent is driven by the scriptures. So when Arjun is in this quandary whether to kill his brother or not, then actually in Mahabharata Krishna quotes certain scriptures to indicate that yes, this is considered to be the same as killing. And similarly, in this case, this is the Acharya says this is the thought process that goes. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explains that perhaps what Arjun thought was that the money is representing his head, so taking the money is like taking off his head, and that's why it was justified. This understanding that he killed Ashwatthama is justified.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
The question, please. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Sarang Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. It is also as if they're killing the pride of someone or the arrogance. And then we also find this example in the Rukmi, when Krishna kidnapped Rukmini, his brother. Krishna did the same to his brother.
Yes. So we find this example at two other places in the Mahabharata. One is with respect to Jayadratha, that when Jayadratha had kidnapped Draupadi, then Bhim wanted to kill him, and everybody restrained him. So then Yudhishthira gave this guidance that disrespect him, which is the same as killing. So when Bhima, he cut his hair off from different places, making him look like an animal, and then he left him loose. And Krishna did the same, as you're saying. Krishna did the same as Rukmi, with Rukmi. And both those situations are, so Krishna wanted to kill Rukmi, but Rukmini Devi, she stopped and said that it's an auspicious occasion where, I'm getting married to you, and he's my brother who's dear to me. So then Krishna, even though he had taken the sankalp to kill him, but because, again, didn't want to displease his new wife, so then he kills him but does not kill him by cutting his hair off. So thank you, Prabhu. Those are two valid examples.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, and one is like, what is the appropriate punishment? What if the punishment is given inappropriately, either on a lesser degree or more to a higher degree than to the crime? What are the consequences is one question. And secondary question is like insulting Jayadratha or Rukmi. In those scenarios, it appears that killing is better than insulting and leaving the enemy, because they came back with greater vengeance instead of getting down with their sinful mentality.
So the answer to your second question is that the motive behind Krishna sparing Rukmi or Bhima sparing Jayadratha was not out of fear. So it's not that they spared them thinking that they will become friendly with them later on. They actually did not, that was not really their consideration. They just wanted to do the right thing. So in case of Jayadratha, Draupadi was the one who intervened on his behalf and said that he's the husband of your daughter, of your sister. Don't make your sister a widow. As an elder brother, you're like her father. So she just preaches to him on the line of compassion, and they consider the value of that, and they let him go, but they still want to punish him because for anybody else, that crime was punishable by death. So they still wanted to punish him, but the same quandary: punish but not punish. And it's the same in case of Krishna Rukmi also, that Rukmi had attacked Krishna, and Krishna was justified in killing him, but then he didn't want to displease his new wife. So same thing, he wanted to kill but not to kill. The first question, I think it's a little subjective, difficult for at least me to answer. The question you're asking is that what is the appropriate punishment? that if Jayadratha had not really kidnapped Draupadi but had simply maybe spoken insultingly to her, what would have been the punishment at that time? Should it have been a little different punishment? So it's a little difficult for me to answer that. Philosophically, we can answer that yes, the punishment should fit the crime. Specifically, don't know. Okay. So we go.
Ruchi, one more. So what's with the cutting of hair? Is it so like you mentioned that it means that it deprives one of wealth. What does it? And like we see like in Tirupati also people like shave their heads and like what does hair represent, or like in our temples also like full-time devotees they shave their heads. So I mean there are various reasons, but I'm just trying to understand like what does it represent?
Thank you. That's a good question, though. Adding devotees to it makes it a little difficult for me to answer. But generally, hair is considered to be a symbol of pride, and cutting off your hair is basically letting go of pride. So, in case of devotees, they are letting go of their pride as Krishna Das or as Krishna Das Anudas. The idea is that I'm a servant of a servant, so they cut their hair. They do it voluntarily as a sign of humility. In these particular situations where a person is forcibly deprived of the hair, it basically is a sign of disrespect. That you're proud of your hair, and taking it away is basically showing disrespect to your prized possession. I don't see that a lot in men, but in women, I think the attachment to hair is very obvious. That they spend a lot of time and effort on the hair, and men also, I guess, or maybe more so in the earlier days where, where I guess. At least when you look at the picturization of the Pandavas and all that, they seem to all have long hair. So maybe they were like taking good care of the hair, and it was sign of the beauty. But generally speaking, the understanding is that the hair is the sign of humility. When the students would go to the Gurukul, then one of the rites of passage was when they entered the Gurukul was they would shave off their head. And that was because from the moment they entered the Gurukul, they were essentially servants of the Guru. So just to formalize that relationship, they would shave off their hair.
And Prabhuji, like if somebody grabs our hair, it is like pretty much they take control on ourselves fully. Like it is like, we feel deeply insulted. Like when somebody grabs by hair, it is pretty much like I lost control on myself. So that is, even men feel definitely it's a big blow to the ego.
True.
Prabhuji, like by disrespect, like what is actually what does it actually kill? Like so Arjuna is trying to disrespect him, like so the disrespect is equivalent to death or killing him. But what exactly is it killing? Like is it killing? One is like, I mean, pride. I can understand that, but what? I mean, is that the only thing
True.
that?
Not really pride. See, because in this, pride is there when you do it yourself. Like if I would cut off my hair, then yes, then I'm trying to relinquish myself of my pride. But when another person does it, it's kind of like this, that there is something that is dear to you, that you think that is, that is an essential part of your existence, and that is being taken away from you forcibly. So that is disrespectful. So, and a close example is that, if somebody uses your name disrespectfully, right? Because the name is dear to you. Somebody uses your name disrespectfully, then that is a direct insult, to you. Hair seems to have, and I'm not sure why, but hair seems to have a much more prominent correlation with one's respect, whether it is self-respect or their respect being deprived by others. But if you look at almost all the ceremonies that are performed, they involve cutting the hair, and so that is voluntary. So that is a sign of humility. Um, and there are also, these are only two instances, but there are also many other instances where, not just in the spiritual context, but even in the material context, the kings would, the messenger would be sent to a king with a particular message. The king didn't like the message, so they would shave off the head of the messenger, because they couldn't kill the messenger. They were bound by the laws of diplomacy, but they would shave off the head of the messenger and send the messenger back, which was kind of the same message, that we killed but did not kill.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I've heard also, or I read somewhere, that some yogi, they have their power in their hair. They keep their power in their hair.
Yes. So hair seems to have a lot of correlation. I think we have spoken enough about hair. So
Yes.
we
It
can
basically kills the pride, and basically it hurts the ego. That's what we are trying to understand, right? I mean, from disrespect, I mean, I'm just trying to basically understand, like, what is disrespect? What does it kill, or how does it affect somebody that it is as equal to death, like.
Yeah. It's like you said, that it basically hurts the ego of the person.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do 1756. Vimuchya rashanabadham balhatya hata prabham tejasa maninahinam shibran nirapayat. He, Ashwathama, had already lost his bodily luster due to infanticide, and now, moreover, having lost the jewel from his head, he lost even more strength. Thus, he was unbound and driven out of the camp. So, one thing that this verse talks about is the manifest effect of sinful activities. So, on the flip side, people who are pious, who perform pious activities, they become physically effulgent. So their face becomes effulgent, their presence becomes effulgent, and loss of piety leads to the loss of effulgence. So this effulgence is not really, now to some extent the effulgence is an effect of the more of goodness. It's the subtle body getting situated in the more of goodness, and it's the tejas that comes. Most of us, or almost all of us, are unable to see that directly. So there are yogis who can see the subtle body, and they're able to understand the positioning, whether it is goodness, passion, ignorance, or even how it is changing. How is the subtle body changing? Because we change our modes over the day and in the situation also. But even with our gross senses, we are able to discern the effulgence on great personalities. Sometimes when you see a sannyasi come by, and you can understand just by looking at the face that this person is spiritually advanced. Prabhupada's disciples had this experience, that many times when they would look at Prabhupada, they were not able to see him just because of the effulgence. For devotees, we understand the effulgence comes because of the connection with Krishna. Just like the iron with fire becomes like fire, so as devotees become more and more connected to Krishna, then they also acquire so Krishna's effulgence with Brahma Jyoti, it illuminates the entire material world, but the devotees acquire a small reflection of it. The yogis, they generally acquire effulgence, at least in the initial stages, through the practice of celibacy, which increases the tejas, and that contributes to the effulgence. In the case of Ashwathama, he was a Brahmin, performing austerities, living a pious life, and because of these sinful activities, he fell down to the lower modes. So, which is why Sutta Goswami says that due to infanticide, which is killing the sons of Pandav, and because of that, he lost his body effulgence, and then because of the jewel, he lost his strength. So the next verse talks a little bit more about the effect of the jewel, but these are the two discernible changes that happens in Ashwathama after Arjun cuts off his hair and takes away his money. So Arjun, having killed and not killed Ashwathama, he unbinds him and he drives him away from the camp. So, questions, comments on this?
How does losing wealth affect the effulgence or the tejas? Because tejas is coming from the subtle body, right? So it's not even related. Like wealth is not even like connected to the subtle body. So I'm just trying to understand the correlation. I understand, like like infanticide that could be that affects. But I'm just trying to understand like how does losing wealth.
So it doesn't say that he lost wealth. It says that having lost the jewel from his head, he lost his strength. But the point you're making is also true, that he lost both his strength and his wealth because of the jewel. And the next verse talks about it. So because of the infanticide, because of sins, he lost his bodily luster. And because of being deprived of the money, he lost his strength. Money meaning not M-O-N-E-Y, but M-A-N-I, the money that is on his forehead. So maybe that's what you were thinking. When I said money, you were thinking wealth.
Yeah, but even strength, isn't that just bodily strength? Like what strength is it talking about? Like,
it's the bodily strength. So when Ashwathama had this money, he was born with the money, but he so let me so in the next verse. But since you asked the question, let me read it out. So this is from the Mahabharata, where it appears in the Sautika Parva, and Ashwathama says, "This jewel is more valuable than all the wealth of both the Pandavas and Kauravas put together. If you wear this, you need not be afraid of your enemies or of disease, hunger, or thirst. No harm will come to you from yakshas, nagas, or thieves. I will never part with this jewel." So Ashwathama is describing the potency of the money in his forehead, and the money being removed basically deprived him of the effect of the money. Okay.
yeah.
So we will go to 1757. Vapanam dravinadanam sthanam niryapanam tatha esha hi brahma bandhunam vadhonyasti dahikaha. Cutting the hair from his head, depriving him of his wealth, and driving him away from his residence are the prescribed punishment for the relatives of a Brahman. There is no injunction for killing the body. So in this verse, Sutta Goswami is explaining to us how does Arjun kill but not kill Ashwathama. So 3 activities he performs. Vapanam, which is cutting the hair from the head. Then Dravinada Nam, which is taking away his wealth. That was taking away the money from his forehead. And Stanad Niryapanam, driving away from the residence. Sutta Goswami says, certainly, he says, certainly, Brahma Bandhu Nam Vadham. So these 3 are certainly prescribed ways to kill a Brahma Bandhu. And then he cautions that na anya, that by no other means, astika dahika. So he cautions that one should not think about astika dahika, which means physically killing such a persons. So this verse, it validates Arjun's course of action, that he cuts off his hair, he deprives him of his wealth, then he drives him away from the camp. And Sutta Goswami is saying that these 3 things, Vapina, Dravinadanam, Stanad, Nirpayanam, he certainly are the 3 ways to kill a Brahmabandhu. Now, one thing to note here is that Sutta Goswami is using the term Brahma Bandhu. So these are not the ways to kill a Brahman. And a Brahman should never be killed. But a fallen Brahman may be killed in this way. So to some extent, we're getting a sense of the highly exalted positions of a Brahman. That a Brahman should never be killed. But if a Brahman has fallen down, even then he should not be he killed, right? Because he says that no anya, no other way, that other than this way, na asti dahika, no other way should be used to kill a Brahma Bandhu. So other points is cutting off the hair. So we have discussed this at quite some length, that because hair is considered as a sign of prestige. Then depriving the money, we discussed that the Ashwathama sharing, that how the money represents his great wealth for him. And then by driving away Ashwathama, he is deprived of his place of residence. So in this way, Arjun, he kills a Brahmabandhu and at the same time does not kill him. Okay, questions, comments?
Prabhuji, one generic question, Prabhu. Like, it's not just informational only. Like, Ashwadhama's, the money is on his forehead or on the top of the head?
So here it says forehead.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
I know in some picturization it is shown as it is on his, it is on the top of his head. Anything else? Okay, 1758. Putra shakatura sarve pandava sah krishnaya svanamritanam yat krityam chakru niranadikam. Thereafter, the sons of Pandu and Draupadi, overwhelmed with grief, performed the proper rituals for the dead bodies of the relatives. So if you remember, earlier on, Arjun had promised Draupadi to not perform the last rites for her son until he returned with the head of Ashwathama. And now that Arjun has fulfilled his promise, he returned with the money which represents the head of Ashwathama. So now the last rites of the sons are performed. So in Srila Prabhupada, he qualifies Pandava with Putra as reference to the sons of Pandu. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he translates it a little differently, and he interprets Putra Shakaturaha as the grief of the loss of the sons by the Pandavas and Draupadis, and Sarve to indicate all the sons of Pandu. So it's again, it's mostly academic distinction that the way Vishwanath Chakravarti interprets this, it comes as the sons of Pandu were grieving for their sons, as opposed to what Prabhupada translates, which is for the dead bodies of their relatives. Because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he joins the relatives to the Pandus. So Pandu relatives in this case are the Upapandavas, the sons of the Pandus. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that then all the sons of Pandu, which are Pandavas, and Draupadi, lamenting for their sons, performed the death rites for their dead relatives and carried them for burning. So, so thus ends the pastime of Ashwathama. The particular gem that was taken from the forehead of Ashwathama, it is gifted to Draupadi, and Bhima, he says, and this is an excerpt from Mahabharata. So Bhima says to Draupadi, "This gem is yours. The slayer of your sons has been vanquished. Rise, casting off sorrow, and recollect the duties of a Kshatriya lady." When Vasudev was about to set out from the Upalavya on his mission of peace, you said these words to him. So this is Bhima recalling or recollecting to Draupadi the words that she said to Yudhishthir. So what did Draupadi said? She said, "I have no husbands, I have no sons, I have no brothers, nor are you alive, O Govinda, since the king desires for peace." So Draupadi at that time was very angry that Krishna was thinking about peace talks. Then Bhima continues, "Those bitter words were addressed by you to Krishna, the foremost of the persons. Recollect those chivalrous words. The wretched Duryodhana has been slain. I have spilled the blood of the living Dushasan. We have paid off the debt we owed to our enemy. People, while talking, will not be able to censure us any longer. Having vanquished Drona's son, we have set him free for the sake of his being a Brahmin and out of respect that should be shown to our deceased preceptor. His fame has been destroyed. Only his body remains. He has been divested of his gem, and on earth he shall be bereft of his weapons." So Draupadi responds saying, "I desired to only pay off a debt for the injury we have sustained. The preceptor's son is worthy of my reverence as the preceptor himself. Let Yudhishthir bind this gem on his head, O Bhima." So, so this is a little bit of a window into the changing mind of Draupadi. that at one point she was speaking such strong words. For a woman to say to her husband that I have no husbands, that I am a widow, is very insulting. It's basically saying to your husband that you're not a man. And for Kshatriyas, these are fighting words. For Draupadi to say to Krishna that you're not alive, it's blasphemy. So Bhim generally is not the most tactful person, but at this time he's deliberately bringing this to Draupadi's attention to say that you demanded of a great revenge, and that revenge has now been executed. So now you give up all your misgivings, give up all the hatred that you have, you give up all the antipathy that you have, and then you continue with your duty. And Draupadi agrees with Bhim because she says that I only desired to pay off our debt, and I'm satisfied now. And I'm also satisfied that my Guru's son has not been killed. And in order to show her appreciation, she presents the gem to Yudhishthir, and for Yudhishthir to tie on his head. So at this point, and this is still Mahabharata, Yudhishthir inquires of Krishna that how did Ashwathama accomplish all this? Killing of Shikhandi, killing of Drishtadyumna, both of them are great warriors. The Upapandavas, great warriors. So they were mitigating circumstances that they were asleep, etc. But Krishna at this point, and this is a lengthy portion in Mahabharata, where he recalls the whole pastime of Lord Shiva punishing Daksha, and to impress on Yudhishthir the immense power of Lord Shiva. And then he says that the same Lord Shiva gave him an amsha of his powers, which is why he became so powerful, at least for some time. So this is the end of the 7th chapter, and I just wanted to conclude with a brief summary of the chapter, but before that I'll stop and see if there are any questions.
Ruchi, one thing that I'm kind of like I was kind of delving, like, I mean, I'm just kind of stuck in that you mentioned about yogis. They're able to see the subtle body, or like, you know, they're able to see beyond the gross, and like they're able to see your subtle body. So so that means that they can so that means that they can see what exactly? Like,
so what exactly?
What mode are we in, or like what activities?
Well, if you remember, so what exactly I'm not sure, but this is one of the siddhis, the yogic siddhis, is that they're able to separate the gross from the subtle, both for themselves and for others. Right? That's why they can travel at the speed of thought, and that's why they can read the mind of others. So these are all characteristics of the subtle, of the subtle body. One thing that is prominent in the subtle body is the 3 modes of material nature. So, which is what, at least in this context, it is that a subtle body in the mode of goodness glows like gold, and a subtle body in the mode of passion glows like fire, and the subtle body in the mode of ignorance is dark like coal. So to some extent, these are acharyas trying to, it's kind of like, we can't see the subtle body, so it's like trying to tell a blind person what colors are. So they use analogies that we are familiar with. But the general understanding is that they're able to discern the nature of the subtle body. The more powerful yogis can enter into your gross body and take your subtle body out. So these are just yogic powers. Just because they're able to make that distinction, they're able to take their own subtle body out of the gross body. They're able to do that the same for the other people also. They can take the subtle body out.
And subtle body is like mind, intelligence, ego, right? False ego, right? So
Correct.
they're able to.
Correct. So subtle body is the spirit soul, surrounded by encapsulated by the mind, intelligence, and false ego. So just like the gross body has these 5 elements, and we can manipulate it. So those who have those capabilities, they can look upon the subtle body made of these 3 elements, and they can manipulate that.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
So there's a book that sorry, Ravi Prabhu, I'll get back to you. It's a book that I probably would not recommend for you to read, but it has so it's called The Autobiography of a Yogi. It's a very famous book, one of the most read books for those who are aspiring to be mystics. And it's not something I'm proud of, but at one point that was my aspiration. I read the book at least 20 times. So I know that book almost page to page. And it talks almost entirely of subtle body, how the ability to distinguish gross from subtle, the kind of exercises that you can do. The first prerequisite is celibacy. On the platform of celibacy, the austerities. So somewhere it is close to bhakti. The purpose is different. The first is yam niyam, very strong performing of the 4 regulative principles, lot of pranayam, breathing exercises, etc. And then it goes into the more esoteric aspect of it. So for a while I used to go around thinking I'm able to see person's subtle body, but then later on realized it was just a reflection of the sun. So Ravi Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, like in Mahabharata, the case, Pandavas being very powerful, they willfully tolerated all the bad things committed by Kauravas, because anytime they can vanquish with their superior powers. But for ordinary people like us, if we are strictly sticking to the Dharma, will that protect even if the foe is very powerful than us?
Protect us from what?
Protect us from from their sinful actions, probably I would say. If somebody is attacking us, if we are still sticking to the principles or the values that we carry, will that protect us, or we have to take aggressive route? Aggressive route is not the right word, but sticking to those principles when other person is not so principled. Like we can see the example of our Hindu Kshatriyas. They were cheated by the Muslims. They initially accept that, no, we surrender to you, and they forgive. And later they came back and again killed.
Right. So I guess 2-part question. So one part, the unequivocal answer is yes, that the dharma raksha rakshita, that one who abides by the principles of dharma is protected by dharma. Right. So that protection is there. It may not come in the way that we see that, let's assume you're walking down the street, somebody is stealing money from you, then you're in the right and the other person is in the wrong. The person has still succeed in stealing money from you. And it's a different discussion. It may be you stole money from that person in previous life or from somebody, it is. But yes, there is no sin that you accrue, right? Because you're following the principles of dharma, there is no sins that you accrue. The second question is a little bit more complicated because, the particular example that you gave is that the Indian rulers were attacked by foreigners and they did not. So what is the duty of a king? The duty of a king is to protect the kingdom, right? A Kshatriya cannot say that I'm a Brahman, so I'm tolerant and I'm humble, so you please come and plunder my kingdom. That's not the dharma, not the Kshatriya dharma. But it depends on the platform. Many other factors are very important. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to summarize the 7th chapter, and then after that we have time. We will start with the 8th chapter, which is one of the most fascinating chapters in the Bhagavatam. Because, does anybody know because of why?
Because of Krishna goes into to protect Parikshit, no?
True. Something else.
Kunti Maharani's prayer.
Exactly. Because it has the prayers of Queen Kunti. It's the first prayer that comes in the Bhagavatam, and it sets the mood. So that's why these are foundational chapters that contain the essence of the Bhagavatam. So everything in these first 2 cantos are like seeds that encapsulate in themselves the whole banyan tree of the Bhagavatam that will come up later on. So in summarizing the seventh chapter, we started off with the trance of Vyasadeva and the 4 seed verses 174 to 17, in which Srila Vyasadeva, on the recommendation and instructions of Narad Muni, he enters into a trance. He sees the material world, the spiritual world, Krishna, his energies, the jiva, and he sees a way out. And that inspires him to write the Bhagavatam. We have the famous Atmaram verse that appears in this chapter, made famous by. To be honest, it's not that famous in the Bhagavatam, but it's made famous by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so Mahaprabhu being non-different from Krishna, so we understand that it's a potent verse. Then the third part of the chapter is the Sutta Goswami beginning to answer the question of the sages with respect to the appearance of Parishit Maharaj. So he is beginning to construct the chain of events. And the chain begins from this point, or at least in the Bhagavatam. The chain in the Mahabharata runs for a long time, but in the Bhagavatam it begins from the son of Drona punished. And then after that, we see the son of Drona attacking Uttara, then Krishna protecting her embryo, and the appearance of Parishit Maharaj. So that's the chain that Sutta Goswami will construct. He's begun it in 1.7, and he will construct it in 1.8. And then there are a lot of wonderful realizations that are made available in this chapter. So we see a wonderful example of Krishna's interaction with his devotees. We see how a non-devotee is a sharanam, without shelter. And what is the main preoccupation of a non-devotee? So we had read this phrase, Swaprananya Parapranan. That how do I save my life at the cost of other people's life? That is how people who are not fixed in the path of devotion operate. And Srila Prabhupada used this as an example for what? Swaprananya Parapranan. Taking others lives for your own self.
Duryodhana.
Taking others' lives for the sake of your tongue.
Meat eating,
right? So Prabhupada writes extensively upon Swapranan, Parapranan, as people who indulge in meat eating, that for their own pran, for their own life, and in this case their own sense gratification, they take the lives of others Then this chapter also talked about Matam Vasudevasya. What does that mean?
To the pleasing of Krishna.
Pleasing of Krishna, yeah. It
Desires
means
of
acting according to the Karmani Matam Vasudevasya. Acting according to the desires of Krishna. And then we see that a person who is Karmani Matam Vasudevasya is Abhaya, becomes fearless. So one of the qualities that we discussed at great length in the chapter was the ability of Krishna to make his devotees fearless, which is something only Krishna can do. So when devotees interact with Krishna in Karmani Matam Vasudevasya, Krishna gives them Sharanam and Abhayda. He gives them shelter and he gives them the exclusive gift of being completely devoid of all kinds of fear. Okay, so we can move on to the chapter 8 unless there are any questions on the 7th chapter. Okay, so we'll do 181. Sutta vacha athate samparetanam swanam udakam ichchatam dhatum sakarshana gangayam purakshaktya yahustriyaha. Sutta Goswami said, thereafter, the Pandavas, desiring to deliver water to the dead relatives who had desired it, went to the Ganges with Draupadi. The ladies walked in front. So the 8th chapter is titled Prayers by Queen Kunti and Parikshit Saved. Two these, essentially the chapter just has these two events in them. And it first talks about Krishna saving Parikshit in the womb of his mother, and then in response, in the direct response, but obviously from a much deeper realization, is the prayers of Queen Kunti. So the first 16 verses in this chapter, 181 to 16, brings forth the quality of Krishna as being equal to everyone, but being partial to his devotees. So this, I'm sure you will remember, is a popular verse in the Bhagavad Gita in the 9th chapter. Krishna displays this particular quality of, or he himself declares that he has this particular quality of being same to everybody, but partial to his devotees. Does anybody want to say that verse?
I'm not sure, Prabhu. Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshasti name priyaha.
Thank you, Prabhu. Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshasti na priya ye bhajante te mam bhaktya maititeshu chapyam. The Krishna says exactly the same thing. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. I'm the same to everybody, but Samoham sarva name dveshasti na priya. I don't envy anybody. I don't favor anybody. But he says that for those who are my devotees, maitateshu chapya, that to them I am partial, that they live in me and I live in them. So that is in a sense the tagline of the first of the chapter, but specifically of the first 16 verses. So far we have seen that Krishna has saved Arjun, his devotee and friend, from Ashwathama's Brahmastra. Then he also reconciles the the family struggle between the various members of the Pandava family, and he glorifies his devotee. So essentially, it was Krishna who gave this idea to Arjun to kill but not to kill. And in doing so, he also empowered Arjun to establish some equilibrium between the three competing forces, between Yudhishthir and Draupadi not to kill, between Bhima to kill, and between his own vow to kill. So Krishna, from the background, he inspired, but he let Arjun, his devotee, take all the credit. And after this, after the funeral rites have been performed, so Krishna and the grieving members, they go to take bath in the Ganges, while there are many sages who are also because the Pandavas were Mahapurush, so they naturally attracted saintly people. So they're also there, and they're also mourning. They're also attempting to pacify the Pandavas and the extended family who are mourning. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, to date, it is a custom in Hindu society to go to the Ganges or any other sacred river to take bath when death occurs in the family. Each of the family members pours out a pot full of the Ganges water for the departed soul and walks in a procession with the ladies in the front. The Pandavas also followed the rule more than 5,000 years ago. Lord Krishna, being a cousin of the Pandavas, was also amongst the family members. So the reason this is being called out, that the ladies walked in the front, is because it is an unusual position for the ladies. Generally, the ladies walk in the middle or behind. And we see that in Ramayan, that Sita Devi, she would walk between Lord Ram and Lord Lakshman. And the idea is that in this way they are protected, or they walk behind, either again for protection or as a sign of humility and respect. But there are certain religious events where the women take the prominent position. So during Graha Pravesh, the women enter the house first. Then in ceremonies dealing with children, generally the priest will call upon the woman before they call on the mother before they call on the father. And similarly, during the funeral rites, the women walk ahead. Now, why particularly they are asked to walk ahead, that's not clear, or at least to me. But conventionally, this is these are the certain rituals in which the women take the position ahead. They take the prominent position. So in the verse, Sutta Goswami says, Sa Krishna. Sa means along with, and Krishna, Srila Prabhupada translates this along with Draupadi. And Vishwanath Chakravarti translates it as along with Krishna. So both are of course correct, because in the procession there was both Krishna as well as Draupadi. But we see that if we look at the verses in 1.7, Sutta Goswami, he typically referred to Draupadi as Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada is just continuing that momentum and translating Krishna to be Draupadi. The the word ichhitam, desired in, so it modifies te. Te in this case is a pronoun that is pointing to the Pandavas, and samparetenam swanam. So samparetenam is dead, and swanam means relatives. So swa means self, like swabhav is what's your bhav, swaraj is your own rule. So swanam is your own name. So relatives are known as swanam because they have your same name, which means that they have either the same gotra or they come from the same dynasty. like the Pandus are the Pandavas are descendants of Pandu, and the Vrishnis are descendant of King Vrishni. So, or in a wider context, the Prajapatis, like there are Kashyaps and Bhargavs, so they're descendants of Prajapati. So Swanam is pointing to the family lineage. So so the point is made that Ichchatam, the desire, is being applied to both. It's being applied to the Pandavas and the Swanams. So it's being applied. So essentially, what it means that the Pandavas desired to offer water to the dead relatives. The dead relatives desired that the Pandavas offer water to them. So that is why Srila Prabhupada translates it as the two desires. So if you read the word to word in the translation, it doesn't add up. But when you look at it from this perspective, that this particular modifier is applying to both the nouns, then Srila Prabhupada's translation makes sense. That this was being desired by the Pandavas because they wanted to offer oblations to the dead relatives, and it is being also desired by the dead relatives. And in Harivamsha Puran, there is a very elaborate and very complicated description of the position of the Pitras, which is, we don't have the time and beyond the scope, but the Pitras are apparently so mystical that even the demigods are confused about them. And there is a question that is asked by the demigods, and in answer to that, the position of the Pitras is described. So they say there are 7 Pitras, 5 are gross, 2 are subtle. Their planet is described. Their position is described. And then how do people go to the planet of Pitras? What qualifies them to live over there? So it's a very elaborate description. But the reason I'm mentioning over here is because there is a reference mentioned to the Pitras as the dead relatives of the Pandavas. So I'll stop over here and see if there is any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, one question about the Pitras. If they passed away and they take birth again, but why do we say that they are on another planet? Normally they go, just like maybe we passed away when we come back. They will pass away and go somewhere else or come back.
So the Pitras are almost like demigods. So there are certain, the reason that they are elevated to the planet is because of a different set of reasons. But it's a position, just like demigods have positions. So certain souls, by virtue of their own pious activities, and then by virtue of the pious activities of the descendants, are elevated to the planets. And just like the demigods eventually fall down, or they could go up, the same is true for the Pitras also.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Anything else?
So, Prabhuji, the Pitras are not forefathers? Is that what the...
So in a way they are, because they are departed ancestors. So they are forefathers. But it's not to say that all the forefathers go to Pitralok. Just like you cannot say, so even though anybody who dies, we say that, Swargvas ho gaya hai, but for all you know, it's Narakvas, right? Depending on the way the person lived. If the person lived a sinful life, it's not going to be Swargvas. It's, the person may go to a hellish planet. So not all forefathers go to Pitralok. Only the ones who are qualified by virtue of their piety and the piety of the descendants.
But Prabhuji, you mentioned like 7 are their total there are 7 Pitras, 5 are grass, 2 are settled. So is that the number of planets you're talking about, or?
Not the number of planets. So I'm going to confess that. So I read this section twice, but I couldn't understand a lot of it because it's very complicated. The way it's described in Harivamsa is very complicated. Um, that so and so I'm going to ask your forgiveness ahead, but what I'm saying might confuse you even more. But the Pitras are actually the children of the Devas. And there is a particular pastime in which the Devas are confused about something and they are trying to find an answer to it. And they finally go and ask their own children or some of their children. And the children, they address their fathers as sons. They say, my dear son, this is what your answer is. And then based on that interaction, they begin to be called Pitras as the forefathers. And then Lord Brahma gives them a position and a place and a planet to live in. And then he gives them several benedictions, which basically accrues to their position as being Pitras. And the only reason I read it was because I was reading the pastime of Srila Vyasadev's birth. So Srila Vyasadev's mother is the daughter of the Pitras. So Satyavati in a previous life was Achoda, and Achoda is the daughter of one of the subtle Pitras. So when she was born, she could not see her father because he had such a subtle body, and she mistook Shantanu, who happened to be riding on an airplane at the time, along with an Apsara called Adrika. She mistook them to be her parents. So the Pitras cursed her to actually take birth as their child. So which is what transpires later on, that Shantanu and Adrika becomes cursed to. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, it's not Shantanu. It's Uparachir Vasu. So it's Vasu so you remember the pastime of the fish swallowing the semen of Vasu, and then Ashoda Satyavati being born. So that was because of the curse of the Pitras. So I was reading that pastime, and then I got more interested into what the Pitras are. So then I found in Harivamsa Puran. But like I said, it's it's something that it runs into several chapters, fairly complicated, and I didn't think it was very relevant to it sounds very much like Karma Kand. It didn't sound very relevant.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, his king of Pitra is Yamaraj Prabhu, Pitralok king.
So the king of Pitras is Aryama. So when Yamraj was cursed and he came down as Vidur, then the king of the Pitras, he assumed the position of Yamraj. So there it is said that Aryama, he took the position of Yamraj.
Only for that period of time when Vidura came down to earth. Okay, sure.
Any non-Pitra related question? Okay, so there are no more questions. We can end a little early today. So we'll continue with the 8th chapter. So as you know, the 17th verse onwards is prayers of Queen Kunti. The preceding 16 verses are relatively quick verses. And then after that, before starting off on the prayers of Queen Kunti, I wanted to spend some time, and I don't know how much, either one class or more or less, on the significance of prayers in our personal life and as explained in the Bhagavatam. So I would like you to reflect on it also, because prayers play such an important role in our own lives. And I don't think it will be next class, but the class after next. I think that will be when we'll start talking about prayers, and then we'll start discussing prayers by Queen Kunti. And the prayer by Queen Kunti is one of the most wonderful compositions. So just to give you a sense that 2 times Srila Prabhupada was in a situation where he did not know that he will survive or not. Once when we had a heart attack when he was in 26 second, and the second was in 74. He again had really bad health. And then his disciples asked him what to do. So Prabhupada gave them a prayer also, which was more of a spontaneous prayer that if you so desire, please allow our spiritual master to preach. But specifically, he asked them to recite the prayers of Queen Kunti, both the times. And Prabhupada's secretary shared that when Prabhupada was alone, there were 2 prayers that he was very, very fond of, that on his own, in a very slow, melancholy, reflective mood, he would chant. One of them were prayers of Queen Kunti, and the second was Brahma Samhita. So these prayers of Queen Kunti are special to our founder Acharya, and when we read it, we'll also see how much depth it is there. So, like I said, I'll start off on a more maybe 1 class or maybe 2, or general discussion on prayers, importance in our life, how to pray, why to pray, and then we'll follow up with the deeper discussion on the prayers of Queen Kunti. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll end over here. Vancha kalpatarubhayaschet kripa sindhu vyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल, हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.